Yo, what's going on, guys? UFC 322 is right around the corner, and this pay-per-view will be taking place on November 15th, and this pay-per-view card is extremely stacked. Honestly, this is going to be the best pay-per-view on paper, probably in the entire year. This pay-per-view is on par with like UFC 300 when you look at how stacked the card is. I don't think it's better than UFC 300 because UFC 300, that was just a generational pay-per-view. The prelims on UFC 300 were extremely stacked compared to this card, but nevertheless, I feel like those cards, they're comparable and they're on the same level. But UFC 300, you had Yuri Prohaska on the prelims for UFC 300. You had Davis and Figueiredo opening up the early prelims on UFC 300. So yeah, the cards, they are on that same echelon, but UFC 300 I think is clearly the better pay-per-view on paper. But this card is still extremely good. We have a lot of notable names on this pay-per-view. So in this video, I'm going to be giving you guys my predictions for every single fight happening on this card. So without further ado, let's get straight into this. First fight on the card, we have Bisongar Susakayev versus Eric Makhachev. And I'm going to go with Bisongar Susakayev to win this fight by a TKO. I just think Susakayev, he's the better striker, and he's going to bring that pressure, which is going to be a nightmare for Eric Makhachev. We saw what happened when he was fighting a taller striker in Nursultan Rozaboyev, and he got completely melted in the first round. He did win against Cody Brundage. I kind of thought that Cody Brundage won that fight. I don't think it was a robbery necessarily, but I would have scored that fight towards Cody Brundage. But Eric Makhachev, he's proven that he is UFC level somewhat. But Bisongar Susakayev, he's kind of on a run. He has some hype behind him. He's Hamza Chimaev's teammate. He's going to have that same energy going into this fight. So I think Bisongar, he's going to knock out Eric Makhachev in the first round. Next fight in the card, we have Angela Hill versus Fatima Klein. And I'm picking Fatima Klein to win this fight by decision. I just think Fatima Klein's grappling background gives her a clear advantage in this matchup. Even though Angela Hill is a veteran, I think she just loses too much. And we all know that Angela Hill, she is notorious for losing close decisions. So I think Fatima Klein is going to get this done. Angela Hill, she might have some success early, but I think Fatima Klein, I think she's going to definitely take control of the fight by implementing her grappling. And Fatima Klein's top pressure is just so good. She could probably just hold and control Angela Hill for large portions of this fight. So I'm going with Fatima Klein to win this fight by a decision. Next fight on the card, we have Chepe Mariscal versus Pat Sabatini. And I'm picking Chepe Mariscal by a decision. Chepe Mariscal and Pat Sabatini, they already fought on the regional scene. And Chepe, he proved that he was a level above in that matchup, even though he did win by a split decision. So it was a very close fight. But I just think that this rematch, I don't see it going particularly different. If anything, I think Chepe is going to have the biggest improvement in the rematch, and I could see him finishing Pat Sabatini because Chepe, he's been on a huge run in the UFC featherweight division. Pat Sabatini, he won his last fight against Joe Anderson Brito. He really did good in that fight. He looked really good. But I just think Chepe Mariscal, he brings that next level of physicality. He's a very physical fighter. I remember he broke Jack Jenkins' shoulder in their fight by attempting this judo throw in the clinch. So yeah, I'm picking Chepe Mariscal by decision. Whoever wins this fight should definitely be looking towards a ranked opponent in the featherweight division. Someone like a Calvin Kattar, someone like a Giga Chikazi, someone at that level, because both of these fighters, they've been floating around that section of the featherweight division that's like almost unranked, arguably top 15. But yeah, whoever wins this fight, they need to have a ranked opponent next. But moving on to the next fight on the card, we have Gerald Meerschaert versus Kyle Daukaus. And I'm picking Kyle Daukaus by a TKO. I think Kyle, he's going to be the sharper striker. He has shown improvements in his wrestling defense. and that's going to give him a major edge when you're fighting Gerald Meerschaert. Gerald Meerschaert, he used to be a really tough test for up-and-coming middleweights, but in his recent fights, he's been looking very, very beatable. Like, he hasn't really been able to get his grappling going. He did have that comeback submission against Edmund Shabazian, but other than that, Gerald Meerschaert, he's looked very kind of bad in his fights. And at this point of Gerald Meerschaert's career, he kind of made his way to the bottom of the middleweight division. And I think if he loses this fight, he might be cut from the UFC. Like I said, Gerald Meerschaert, he has not been looking good in his recent fights. So I think Kyle Daukaus is going to make a statement performance in this fight. But moving on to the bantamweight division, we have Malcolm Wellmaker versus Cody Haddon. And this is actually a pretty tough matchup for Malcolm Wellmaker, but I'm going to be picking him to win by TKO. I just think his striking, his explosiveness, and his knockout power is going to give him a clear advantage against Cody Haddon. And he's also very technically sound. A lot of these power punchers that you see knocking people out, they kind of don't have that much technique to harness that power. But Malcolm Wellmaker, he kind of has that perfect mix between striking IQ and technique with the striking combined with the massive knockout power. And I think he's a very talented prospect in the bantamweight division. Hopefully, he can keep the fight standing. If I'm Cody Haddon, I'm definitely going to be shooting a lot of takedowns. I'm going to be trying to get this fight on the ground, especially in the first round when Malcolm Wellmaker is dangerous. But I think Malcolm Wellmaker is going to find that KO blow, and I'm picking him to win by a first round TKO. Maybe a second round TKO, depending on which version of Cody Haddon shows up. But next fight on the card, we have Erin Blanchfield versus Tracy Cortez. And I'm picking Erin Blanchfield by decision. I just think that she's the more well-rounded fighter, and she has a very good skill set to work with. She has really good grappling, really good pressure. Even though Tracy Cortez is really tough and strong, I think Erin Blanchfield's control on the ground and her ability to transition to submission attempts is on a different level in this matchup. I think if Erin Blanchfield isn't able to get that submission, she'll definitely be able to rack up control time, rack up damage on the ground, things that the judges are really looking for. And even on the feet, Erin Blanchfield, she hasn't really been looking too shabby on the feet. She's been developing her striking. She's come a long way from her older fights. And I think she's really going to show a very good version of herself in this matchup. So I'm picking Erin Blanchfield to beat Tracy Cortez by a decision. Next fight on the card, we have a really good middleweight matchup between Roman Kopylov versus Gregory Rodriguez. And I'm picking Gregory Rodriguez to win by a TKO. I think RoboCop is one of the most violent middleweights on the roster. And I don't think that Roman Kopylov can take that power, that raw power, that pressure, that intimidation factor. Like, RoboCop, he's a very hard fighter to keep away from you. RoboCop, he's the type of dude, he's constantly pressuring forward. He's constantly getting in your face. If you're not on the level of like a Jared Cannonier, I don't see anyone putting him away. Roman Kopylov, he does have some crisp boxing. He does have some good striking. I was kind of rating him a little bit too high, especially when he fought Paulo Costa. I thought Roman Kopylov was going to completely outstrike Paulo Costa, but I was wrong in that prediction. And I think that really showed me the ceiling of Roman Kopylov. And I think RoboCop, he is definitely a better fighter than Roman Kopylov. And I think Gregory Rodriguez, he could probably be like in the top 10 of the middleweight division. That last top 5 spots, like 11 to 15 of the middleweight division, all those fighters are pretty interchangeable with some unranked middleweights outside the rankings. So I think Gregory Rodriguez, he's going to find that TKO sequence and win this fight by a finish. Next fight, headlining the prelims, we have a fight between Bo Nickel versus Rodolfo Vieira. I made a whole video covering this matchup, and I think I made my point very clear. I think Rodolfo Vieira is going to win by submission. I think Bo Nickal wrestling, for him to kind of lean heavily on that is going to be a huge mistake in this matchup because Rodolfo Vieira, he is so good at using his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in transitions. I just think that Bo Nickal, his wrestling isn't going to be enough to save him on the ground, especially when you're dealing with such a good jiu-jitsu ace like Rodolfo Vieira. He's going to be able to transition on the ground. He's going to be able to find submissions. I think this is really going to prove that debate about if American wrestling is viable in the UFC. And yeah, I think Bo Nickal, he's not that experienced. He did fight a high-level middleweight in Reiner de Ritter, but like we all know, he lost that fight. Rodolfo Vieira, he's been honing his game against really tough levels of competition in the middleweight division. I just think that he's going to outgrit Bo Nickal. He's going to find a submission. I can see him subbing him in round 2. But now moving on to the main card, and there are some really interesting matchups on the main card. Starting with Beneil Dariush versus Benoit Saint-Denis. And this is a really, really close fight. I'm tempted to pick Benoit Saint-Denis to win this fight, but something in me tells me that Beneil Dariush, not to sleep on him, I'm picking Beneil Dariush by decision. I think Beneil Dariush, he has a lot of composure in his fights, and that helps him make very tactical and correct decisions while he's fighting. And yeah, he's a MMA veteran, so he's been doing this for a long time. He has the high level grappling to compete with Benoit Saint-Denis. I can see Beneil Dariush landing huge shots on Benoit. Benoit, he's notoriously known for not having that good of a defense. I think Beneil Dariush is the type of fighter to exploit that. And yeah, Benoit Saint-Denis, he's just a marauder. Like Beneil Dariush, he's shown that he can counter. He beat Matheus Gamrot in their fight. He was landing some good shots on Matheus Gamrot, and I think he can kind of replicate that performance against Benoit. So I think he's gonna win this fight by a decision. Next fight on the card, we have Leon Rocky Edwards versus Carlos Prates, and I'm picking Carlos Prates by TKO. I also made a video dedicated to this matchup, and this is a very interesting matchup. Carlos Prates, he bounced back from his loss to Ian Gary with that emphatic knockout against Jeff Neal. And Leon Edwards, he's kind of on a downward trend in his career. So I think this is going to be a very interesting matchup to see how those momentums kind of clash. But like I said, I'm picking Carlos Prates. I think his striking is definitely going to be on another level. Leon Edwards, he is a very well-rounded fighter, but I don't think he's exceptional at one specific thing in this game. And when we talk about Carlos Prates, he's actually very hard to hit. He's a very rangy fighter. He knows how to manage distance properly. I think that Muay Thai style of Carlos Prates is going to be a difficult stylistic challenge for Leon Edwards. If I'm Leon Edwards, I'm definitely going to want to be shooting takedowns. I need to get Carlos Prates to the ground. That's what I would be thinking if I'm Leon Edwards. But Carlos Prates, he does have some surprisingly good takedown defense as well. So Leon Edwards, he has a lot on his plate in this matchup. So I'm going to be picking Carlos Prates by TKO in round 2. Next fight on the card, the feature fight, we have Sean Brady versus Michael Morales. And I'm picking Sean Brady by decision. And this is a very difficult matchup to choose because we haven't really seen the ceiling of Michael Morales. He is undefeated. He's never lost. So it's hard to gauge who he's going to lose to because he can just be like really good. But I think Sean Brady is good enough to turn back a undefeated fighter like Michael Morales. Michael Morales, he's mainly a striker. So Sean Brady, he has the perfect counter to that type of style with his grappling, that heavy grappling pace, that suffocating wrestling and top control. That's going to be his best weapon in this matchup. Morales, he does have the power and athleticism, but like I said, when Sean Brady takes you down, he's going to lay on you, you're going to fatigue, and when the fight finally gets back to the feet, Sean Brady, his striking isn't half bad. So Sean Brady, I think he'll be able to hang with Michael Morales on the feet long enough to take him down. And then win rounds off of the control time, off of damage. We could even see a submission in this matchup. I can see that definitely happening. But like I said, Marco Morales, we haven't really seen his ceiling in the UFC. So yeah, he can just pop out here and just knock out Sean Brady out of nowhere and then shake up the whole welterweight division. So this is a very tough matchup to gauge, but I'm going with Sean Brady. I think he's proven himself to be a very good fighter. His only loss is to Bilal Muhammad by finish. That's a kind of a bad look, but Bilal Muhammad, he's a former champ. He was the best welterweight on the planet for a few years. So I think Sean Brady has this matchup in the bag. So moving on to the co-main event, we have a fight in the flyweight division. The champ Valentina Shevchenko defending against Weili Zhang, the former strawweight champ, moving up a weight class. And I'm gonna be picking Valentina Shevchenko by decision. Weili Zhang, she's a very good fighter, but I think the things that kind of hold her back is kind of her range, because she kind of has a shorter reach. She's kind of shorter for her division. And I think Valentina Shevchenko, she's very physical. She's going to be using her physicality. She's obviously the bigger fighter. She's from the higher weight class. So that's going to be a factor in this matchup. And Valentina, she's a very, very good striker as well. So I think those things are going to be a turning point in this matchup. I see Valentina Shevchenko taking over in the later rounds. Weili Zhang, she's very good. And one thing I think that she will excel at is going to be the takedown defense. I don't think Valentina Shevchenko is going to be able to impose her grappling in this game. But like I said, Weili Zhang, her biggest weakness is going to be the range on the feet. So I think Valentina Shevchenko, this is going to be a matchup where she's just going to outpoint her for 5 rounds. I can see this being like a 49-46 going towards Valentina. I don't really see this matchup getting anything too crazy. It wouldn't surprise me if this fight is boring, but based on just the names and the stakes in this fight, I think this is definitely the biggest matchup in WMMA history, just by the pedigrees and the accomplishments of these two fighters. But moving on to the main event, we have the welterweight champ Jack Della Maddalena fighting Islam Makhachev, the lightweight GOAT, moving up a division. And this is a very good matchup. And everyone's picking Jack Della Maddalena to win this fight. And I might have to hop on that train. I think Jack, he's a very good boxer. His boxing is so good. I think that's going to be a really underrated aspect in this fight. Even though everyone's talking about it, I think it's underrated. Jack Della Maddalena, he's like a huge version of Dustin Poirier. And we saw the success that Dustin had against Islam in their matchup. I think Jack Della Maddalena, he's going to just outbox and outdamage Islam Makhachev and win a decision. What is going to make this kind of a hard fight for Jack is that I think, of course, Islam, he's going to try and implement his grappling. Now, I can see this being a fight where Islam just easily dominates and submits Jack Della Maddalena. I definitely think that both fighters can win by decision, but who is more likely to get a finish is going to be Islam Makhachev. I just think that Islam, he's going to be more likely to win by submission. And when you put it that way, I think Jack Della Maddalena, he has the appropriate team around him to deal with the grappling. He's been training with Craig Jones. He's been training with Volkanovski. And when you consider that Islam Makhachev, he just has so many fights in the UFC that I think it's about time that someone kind of makes a game plan to counter his style. I think Jack Della Maddalena, he can dig to the body. Body shots are going to be huge in this matchup. If he can target Islam Makhachev's gas tank, that's going to be the key to winning those later rounds. I think Jack Della Maddalena can survive those early grappling exchanges. And like I said, I think this is going to be a close fight. I see it going 3-2 either way. I don't think this is going to be a 50-45 by any fighter, but I think Jack has the skills to edge it. Like I said, Islam Makhachev, he's extremely well-rounded. He definitely has the skills to beat JDM. I think that southpaw stance of JDM is going to be such a problem in some instances on the feet. We saw that Islam struggles against strikers who are southpaw. And if you add in the fact that JDM, if he can throw in those leg kicks, because Islam, he doesn't really check leg kicks that often, I think Jack Della Maddalena, he can definitely get a game plan suited to defeat Islam Makhachev. Like I said, there's so much film study on Islam. There's so much tape that you can pull from. I think it's about time that someone puts all that together and actually creates a great game plan to counter Islam Makhachev. So that's going to be it for these predictions. As usual, like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in my next video.